Hey there, how are you, everybody? All right, we are live for the first time in like a month, and I'm going to share with you all something who's on here, why it took so long. I was not on vacation. Ha ha ha. I had surgery. Okay, we got that over with. You all heard it who are here, and if you didn't, you missed it. Too bad. But I'm fine, and we're ready to rock and roll. I am Dr. Deb. And this is Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern, which means we are going live and we do this every single week. Now, something I have said every time and will keep saying, I need to be interrupted. I need you to chat in so that I actually know you're there and I don't like speaking to myself. I mean, I live alone. Thank you for chatting in. I am glad to be back too. So the reality is that I was saying I don't like talking to myself. I live alone. My husband's deceased. And oh, well, I talk to myself all day long. This is my opportunity to talk to you. So I really do want you to chat in. Another thing is that this will be a public stream. In the beginning, I was keeping these lives not public, but I have opened up and relaunched the whole the whole YouTube channel. So it is public, and if you're not comfortable chatting in, I get it. You can do a thumbs up if you like instead, because that at least tells the algorithm that I'm saying something worthwhile. All right, today's topic is how do I engage my avoidant spouse? And I just want to share with you that if you have such a spouse or if you have struggled with it, you're not alone. This is a big, big, big problem for lots and lots of people. But I want you to understand one thing that's super important, which is most people make a major, major mistake when they're confronted with a spouse who is not engaged. They think something, and I'm going to ask you what it is. I'm not going to tell you right away. What do you think is the mistake of people who argue, plead, explain, share how they feel, are very nice about it, and it doesn't work? What do you think is the mistake that all those people are making and why it doesn't work? And I'm going to give you a minute to think about that and type it in while I tell you the story I made that I had, gosh, 30 years ago. I made the same mistake. It had nothing to do with an avoidant spouse. I was talking to someone at the time about what I would do if I was robbed. Now, I live in New York City, and at the time I was living in Manhattan, the city of the city, the heart of the city. And, it happens. There are robberies, right? And I don't know why we had this conversation, but I said to the person that I was speaking to, well, I would just say to them, is this the life you want to live? Is that who you think you really are? Are you worth more than going around robbing people? And the other person started laughing at me. And I couldn't understand it. But I was young and foolish, so I didn't really get it. So I've given you a big hint here. What mistake did I make then? And what mistake would any person be making now who explains how they feel, who begs and pleads for engagement, who cries, all to no avail? What is the mistake they're making? Okay, you got a bunch of people on here who do not wish to share. Aww. I'm looking at the chat. No one is sharing. Okay, I will tell you my answer. The answer is kind of unfortunate. They're too logical. That's the answer. Why can't you be logical with a robber? Why can't you be logical with your avoidant, disengaged, unemotionally available spouse? Why? It's all the same thing. Because no human being on earth operates from logic. I know we think we do. We all say we're logical, but it isn't true. And the proof of it is if you take a Democrat and you take a Republican and they want to argue their points, they both sound very logical. They do. Their points are well taken. So what tips the balance? It's emotions. Don't let anyone tell you different. We act out of emotions. The robber doesn't believe in himself and he thinks the only way he's going to make money is robbing, and he may be high as a kite too. Your unengaged, disengaged, unemotional, avoidant spouse is also operating from emotions, and those emotions rule. So what are those emotions? What are the emotions that they have that you don't have? Why can't you have a logical conversation? What is keeping you? What do you guys think it is? Now I'm asking another question. What do you guys think it is? Nobody wants to chat in because I said it's going public and your name's out. Listen, that's true. I don't know if there's a way of chatting in anonymously. If you could do that, I don't mind. I don't need your name on there. Why doesn't logic work? Last night, oh, good. Yes, thank you. They are protecting themselves. This person has been following me. You must be following me, right? You've been listening to my stuff or someone else's stuff that's pretty much the same. Yes, you got it. This person wrote, see, I don't use the names. They are protecting themselves. A little, okay. Smart person. Yes, and where does that come from? That's really the issue here. Why logic doesn't work and why emotions rule and why they're avoidant and unemotional and not engageable in the first place. Why? My answer in one word is trauma. I totally believe that every single case you have of a marriage that's not going well, you will find some level, some degree of trauma in that person's history. And trauma doesn't mean that they fell out of an airplane, you know. That doesn't mean they were sexually abused, although it obviously those things qualify. But you see, here's the thing about human beings. We're kind of fragile. And what really matters is it only takes what some would consider a little bit of pain that causes trauma to that person. You know, I was reading in a book, and I don't remember which book, I wish I could quote it, of a man talking about his success in life. And he was saying, my father made me tough, and that's why I became successful. He told me you can't do it, and I wanted to prove to him that I could do it. The person who was interviewing him said, well, would you say your father was abusive? And the guy said, listen, I'm not going to judge my father. Maybe someone would say he was abusive. He never gave me a feeling that I could succeed. He never believed in me, so I had to prove him wrong. And it worked. I'm successful. I have a great business, and I help people. My business gives the right amount of money to charity. I take care of my workers, etc. So he was a good guy, and he had what I would think of as a traumatic background with a father who was unloving. What happened? The interviewer said, can you tell me about your sister? And he stopped and he said, she committed suicide. You see, two people are different. And the same impacts on each one might have a very different outcome for that person, because one simply cannot take that. They can't handle that level of a lack of validation, that level of what would feel like rejection, that level of not connecting, feeling disconnected. She committed suicide. Now, I don't remember the case. I really don't remember who it was that said it. It was in a book of some successful business person. So I'm sorry for that. Maybe if you all know, if any of you knows what I'm talking about, you could put that in the comments, and you can come around and put it in the comments later after this live is finished. But the point I'm making is that we all have different degrees of not perfectness in our background, and those different degrees we either adapt to or we react to as trauma. There is a wonderful therapist named Gabor Mate. Hope you've heard of him. If you haven't, you should look him up. He's an addiction specialist, and he said something very interesting in a video I saw. It's on the web, so you could probably find it as well. He said, first, we injure our children as children, and then they grow up and they start using and abusing drugs because they can't stand the pain they're in. And then when we catch them with it, we punish them even more. So they get punished twice. And who's helped them? Who's reached out to them? Well, now, thank God, there are more and more people in all the helping professions, including our jails, more and more people, the police, etc., who are recognizing the role of trauma in people's histories. So let's go back to this guy who's unengaged, who's emotionally unavailable. Why would that be? Why would this unemotionally available person be that way? Let's imagine his traumatic history, and you'll see how it all fits. Let's say that he learned as a child the following rule: your emotions are dangerous. Don't have them. How could a person have a rule like that? Where would that come from? Well, imagine a boy, and the picture I had on my thumbnail was a boy, and it's one of the people in my group actually raised the question, not saying my spouse is unemotionally available, but my husband. And it's true of both sexes, but more so of men in our society. And let's say this boy, as a child, came home crying from school because he was bullied. And his father gave him the beating of his life and said, my son is not a crybaby. Well, that would teach him a lesson, wouldn't it? Don't cry. Don't feel pain. Don't feel anything. Yesterday, I was talking to a client. I do not get into details about clients, but just suffice it to say this guy comes off hard as nails. Doesn't talk about feelings, can't have empathy, unable to have empathy. And all of a sudden, he's talking to me about the lyrics in a piece of music that he loves, and he starts getting emotional. You can hear it in his voice, and he admits it. What's going on? Here's the answer. When you're that child who has been taught, and this guy was not beaten, by the way. He had other messages that made him tough, not going into details. But if you were taught in one way or another not to have or not to show or display your emotions, not to even feel your emotions, then what would happen to you when you have them? Like, do they really go away? The answer, I'm happy to say, is they don't. What happens is they go underground. The fact that they go underground is a very good thing. It makes you human. It makes that guy human. He does not turn into a robot. He does not turn into a narcissist. And sometime in the future, I'll do a whole thing on narcissists because I have a lot of thoughts on that. There's no such thing, because you don't turn into someone who doesn't feel. That's not who you really, really are underneath everything. You do feel underneath everything, and it will come out. It leaks out. It leaks through the crevices of your psyche. That's why, by the way, even women who learn not to cry because their tears were either mocked or ignored or twisted around. I've heard this one. Don't you cry, you're manipulating me. You know, if you cry, this is to women, you're going to get me to change my mind or my behavior or my something. No, it's not a manipulation. It's a real feeling. It's a false accusation, and it's a miserable thing to be subjected to. But the reality is that when this happens, something leaks out. So those people maybe will cry at commercials. Have you seen that? Do you know people who cry at commercials? Or you'll go to the movies and cry because it's safe. That's when it's safe for your true feelings to leak out. So let's get back to the unemotional man, the avoidant man, unavailable emotionally. This person cannot, or woman, cannot allow themselves to feel compassion for you, because what would happen if they did? I'd love to have somebody respond to this. And if you want to, the same person, I appreciate it. If other people want to, that's great. What would happen if this shut down person allowed themselves to feel for you? They might be attacked. They might be attacked. They could be. That's right. If they felt for you, their old story of being attacked to have emotions would be there, even though you would never attack them for having emotions. But they're afraid of it. Exactly one possibility. Yeah. Even worse, they would start to feel sorry and pain for themselves, and they can't allow that because their whole life they've taught themselves not to have that feeling, or they'll be in trouble for it. They'd be vulnerable and have to deal with their past. Right. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm saying. So either of these are possibilities. You guys see where I'm going with this now? You see how this works? And by the way, the lady who wrote before, I'm waiting to hear from you. You know why? Anyway, you see that when a person's emotionally unavailable, there's a very good reason for it. A very good reason for it. Basically, it's called survival. As a child, that's the only way that person could survive. And now you're using logic. Well, logic is not going to get to the emotions. You are crying, oh my God. Then they're going to accuse you of being manipulative because they don't want to get to their emotions. You're begging? Well, they don't have to give it to you. They have to protect themselves. Basically, they're going around numb. They're half alive, and they're going to be satisfied with that because it's a whole lot better than feeling pain. Now, by the way, in my personal story, I would choose pain, but that's just me. I literally made that choice. I said that I had surgery, and I took myself 2 days ago off all my pain meds. So I feel pain. I'd rather feel pain than be half dead. But that's just me, as I said. Okay, so what is the solution? What is the solution? And yeah, you know, I'm a therapist. I'm going to say therapy, but there's something you all can do, and it's very hard. And the reason it's very hard is because you've been attacked so many times by this unemotional person who has been like a stone wall when you greet them with love and warmth and kindness that you don't want to anymore, and it's totally normal on your part. That's your protective mechanism. That's your way of ending up taking care of yourself so that your vulnerability is not getting taken advantage of. Ooh, I like this comment. Perhaps they should model vulnerability. Yeah, that's where I'm going, except for one problem, which is what I'm saying. It's hard because you don't want to be ripped to shreds by this stone wall that you're confronting. Yeah, but that's actually where I'm going. If you can be kind, even if you get a blank look for it, or disbelief. I don't believe that's how you really feel. You're just putting that on because you want something from me. If you could be kind, even though you're going to be accused that that's not the real you, or okay, you're kind now, you're going to change tomorrow. You can't keep it up. You're not a nice person. How that hurts when you know you're a nice person, when you know you're a good person. Have you reacted sometimes? Sure, you've reacted sometimes. How could you not react to being mistreated for years? Of course you react. But if you can be steadily, steadily, steadily kind, in spite of all that, it might, not necessarily, after years of this, being numb and shut down and unavailable might not work. But if you can keep it up anyway, maybe, just maybe, they will suddenly one day believe you. Maybe they will feel your kindness. Maybe. And unfortunately, I don't have a lot of great ideas other than therapy. And now you're going to say, yeah, but how do you get them into therapy if they're emotionally unavailable? And the answer is very simple. Have you ever gone to the dentist and gotten a Novocaine in your gum? Did you like it? What happened when you went home to eat and you chewed your cheek up because you didn't feel it? You're going around not feeling anything. And then maybe you numb yourself with substances too. Or cheating. Cheating is a numbing, by the way. We're not going to talk about that. That's for another video. But yeah, cheating is another way to numb yourself. So there's substances, there's gambling, there's cheating, there's other addictions, there's yelling. By the way, yelling is a fantastic numbing agent. Did you know that? When a person blows up in tremendous anger, what happens? Their heart rate goes up. They're breathing fast. They're so pumped, right? And then what happens? It's like the post-sugar high. What happens? Why do all the diabetic nutritionists say don't take sugar? Because it brings your sugar up and it brings your blood sugar down. And that's exactly what yelling does. Anger. It brings you up and it calms you down. That's a physiological response, which is the same as the responses to taking the drugs that bring you down and calm you down. Hello. They're all addictions. They're all methods of numbing themselves from pain. And they live that way. And so you can't be logical. We said that. But if you could be short and sweet and catch them when they're in a somewhat logical moment, you can say, I know you're in pain. In fact, the person that I was talking to, the client I was talking to yesterday, God knows why I started off being logical. It didn't work. I said, you know what? Let's forget the last half hour. I don't like where I was going. I'm going to give you a free half hour right now. And then I said, how did you feel when X happened? And right away, that's where we got into the emotions, and that's what will do it. My being kind, my being able to tolerate, I mean, he wasn't abusive to me, but to tolerate the logical going nowhere and feeling frustrated with going nowhere and turning it around into something that could go somewhere did. In fact, just a few minutes before that, I had said, you know, you're paying for therapy here. It's expensive. Where do you want to go with this? What's your outcome going to look like? Because we were talking about abusive situations and blah, 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 relationships not going anywhere. He said, I'm glad you mentioned the cost of this. And he was starting to get annoyed. When we went into the emotions, he and I were very connected, and he wanted to share these lyrics, etc., like I was saying before. The point I'm making is you have to have a strong sense of self-energy, yourself, to be kind, to be, as this person said, to model vulnerability. You have to believe enough in yourself that whatever they say isn't going to trip you up or trigger you. And even if you got triggered, you remind yourself through the work that you're seeing here on these YouTubes and the posts I create in my Facebook group, which I'm going to start putting into the community here on YouTube as well, and that I put in my blog as well, that you get by email. I mean, I send it out all over the place. So hopefully you're learning that you can get into self-energy so well that you know clearly who you really are, and that you are not the same as those protectors that get mad back and react and make smart remarks or cry or beg or plead, because those are all protectors. They're not yourself. If you can stay in self-energy, then you've got it made. And so maybe you can be consistently kind to this person, even when they're abusive or unavailable. I want to know, it's exactly 1:29 on my clock. Do you have any questions, comments? Did you like this? Was this worthwhile? Did you feel like this gave you something? I need to know. I am very open to criticism. I love criticism because criticism tells me what I have to fix. No, Dr. Deb, you didn't answer my question. Okay, what was your question? It was X, Y, and Z. Okay, I'll do that in another video. We can do it. I'm open. And if you don't want to do that now in the live chat, come back around because it's going to get posted. And let me know. Thank you. Worthwhile. You're saying thank you. Great talk. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I really appreciate those comments. I really do. Otherwise, I wouldn't know if I'm doing right or not. So have a wonderful, wonderful day. All of you, a great week, a great weekend, and hope the winter will treat us well. Here, it's really cold in New York. It suddenly dropped. All right. Go forward with kindness and self-energy. If you need more help on that, you know how to reach me. You take care, you guys.